What's up, old Power Ass Crew? Today's video, well, we've got a bit of an issue. My son and I, we hit the junkyard up in Portland, thought we was going to walk the yard around a little bit. It was one of those junkyards they won't let you walk around, so we didn't hang out, we left. And so we kind of cruised the back roads a little bit, coming through town. We're talking about food here, food there, because we're getting hungry. All of a sudden, I got no clutch. Not like no clutch as in I push it down, it goes to the floor. I mean, I can't even push the clutch down. So today's video, I'm going to show you how to change the clutch master cylinder, give you a few little pointers, and hopefully it'll help you out. So my clutch pedal's locked up. What does that mean? Look at this. Will not go down, will not move. You see right there as far as it goes. And I actually started to get froggy and really like put the leg press to it and try to make it go down further, but that would just probably cause more damage than situation I was already in. How did I get it home? Had some trickery going on, so to speak. That's where you better, I can drive a stick or you can really drive a stick. You know, it's like that. The very first vehicle I learned how to drive was a stick shift. Those 68 GMC 3-speed on the column. If you can drive one of those old GMCs or Fords, whatever, with 3-speed on the column with a wore out linkage, you can drive any stick. So what I would do is I would turn the key off, then the transmission would go in gear. Okay, as soon as the transmission would go in gear, turn the key on, hit my starter button, start the Jeep, and roll out like that. I couldn't change gears, so I was either coming home in first or second gear, whichever one I decided to start it in. So what would I do is stop signs and red lights. Pretty simple, actually. When you're rolling up to the stop sign or stop light or whatever, pull the Jeep out of gear. Pull it out of gear. Now, you can't press the clutch, so you actually got to force it to come out of gear. And as soon as it comes out of gear, you're going to coast up. Whenever you get stopped, turn your key off, turn the engine off, put the transmission back in gear, start the Jeep again. It'll start in gear. Not all of them will. Someone's going to have that neutral safety switch up on the clutch that prevents you from starting it in gear. This rig right here doesn't have that. I can start this thing without pressing the clutch, which is a blessing in this case. So once it started, boom, I just roll right out, but I couldn't change gears. If I started in first, I stayed in first. If I started in second, I stayed in second. But it got me home, and luckily I was right here in town, so no big deal. So how do I know for sure that it's not something wrong with the clutch pedal, or is it the master cylinder? Easy way to check it. Go way up in here, you follow that up there, and if you see that key, I can't get me and the camera and everybody else up in there. See right there, see the end of my drill bit? There is a hairpin key right there. You got to pull that key out, because then what you do is right there, you pull the key, and right there it's holding that in place. That is your master cylinder for your clutch. So you pull that key, slide that off. Okay, so I'm going to do that, and I'll come back and show you the camera shot showing you what it looks like after you pull it all apart. You see I just took a drill bit, that rascal right there, and pulled that key out. Which leaves you with this. Now, yes, if I get up here with the camera. Right there is the end of your clutch master cylinder. Once you pull that key out, you can see the hole right there. Just slide that off. Boom, see. Now, is the clutch gonna move? Look at that. Look how free that is. Well, I just hit the camera with it. So that just confirms that it is the clutch master cylinder, because I cannot press it in whatsoever. It will not move. It will go back and forth because it's on that flex, but I can't push that thing in at all. I'm gonna switch hands so I get any better pressure on it. Now this Jeep right here has the internal slave cylinder, so what you're gonna have is this pin right here. Come on, camera, you can do it. Focus. It's in that shadow back there, but there's a pin right there. There it is. It come together now. There's a pin right there. That pin's got to come out because the hydraulic fluid line gets pressed out of that hole right there. It's got like a O-ring on a brass seal that goes down inside there. So you got to press out that hairpin right there, roll pin, should I say. Okay. So the roll pin comes out. Then these two bolts here, one right there, one right there. When you unscrew those, that whole thing right there come out. Fluid line first, simply because it makes it easier on you, because it stays stationary. We come in from this side right here and tap it out. Then take those two nuts off. That thing will come right out of there. As you can see, I've got the roll pin partially knocked out. I'm using 1/8 inch punch. Those things are much easier to deal with. than taking a tip of screwdriver or a nail. A 16-penny nail would knock them out. I've done that before. But once you get pushed out to a certain distance, over here on the back side, if you can see it, I'm going to have to see what the viewfinder sees. Anyway, right there, if I can touch it. Right there, I've got my finger hanging on it to the back side of the roll pin. So it feels like I got to drive it out just a little bit further. Now I'll be able to get back to there with a pair of pliers and pull it on out. So I want to drive it back just a little bit more. And there it is. Now, as you're driving it out, from this side right here, knocking it that way, don't get overzealous here with pounding the snot out of it, because really you just got to tap it. And after a while, if you look over top of the master cylinder here, on top of this nub, rise right here, you'll see it start poking through on the other side. Whenever you see it, get your pliers back here and hold on to it and just kind of wiggle it, pull it out. Or most of all, just don't get crazy, tapping. Next thing you know, you knock the roll pin completely through and it falls down on the ground, and yeah, good luck with that. Anyway, now that I got the fluid line loose, I can go ahead and pull that out if I want to. But first, I'm going to run in the house, get some paper towels, and get all the fluid out of here so I don't make it such a mess. Then we'll get those bolts out. The clutch master cylinder, they hold so little fluid that you can take some paper towels and little by little just drop it in and soak it all up to help prevent making a major mess whenever you take the bolts out and pull that thing out. See, all good. In the trash it goes. These two nuts, 1/2 inch, got them taken off. You should be able to pull this out like right here if that line gives you enough room right there. Now you can take your screwdriver, get that line, wedge it behind it after you get the roll pin out. If you don't get that roll pin out, it's not moving. So get your screwdriver right there, wedge up on it, you pull that fit right out of there, and you're home free. Go get you a new one. So we got the baby out, and here's something that kind of scares me. Watch this. It's not locked up. And every time I push it, I can see little bubbles and there's fluid spitting out right there. Means it's a really good indication that the master cylinder is good. If the master cylinder is good, that means the slave cylinder is bad. If the slave cylinder is bad, that's really bad, because I've got an internal slave cylinder, which means I'll have to drop the transmission. So here's what we'll do. I'm going to go ahead and change this out. I got a new one waiting on me because it's under warranty. So I put this one in 2014. I'm going to go get a new one, show you guys how to finish. Finish showing you guys how to put it in, and we'll discover at that point as to whether or not it's good or bad, and I will include that in the video. But at least then you guys will know how to install a clutch master cylinder. I'm back. I had to run to the auto parts store, go grab another one, and CM 1301, which is the O'Reilly part number if you need to know that. So let's get this thing open and get it installed. Oh yeah, I'd like to point out too, this kit comes with a new roll pin and the new O-ring. The O-ring goes on the end of that right there. So we'll pull that O-ring off, get a rag and wipe it, clean everything up real good so we don't get no debris down inside of it. Change out the oil ring and put the baby back on. Now to change out that seal right there, if you can get your dental pick, get in behind it, walk it off that right there. Or I use the back side of that right there, hooked under it, walked it off. Because you want to replace that O-ring since they gave you a new one in the kit. Now on the Jeep forums and the Facebook groups, I see sometimes some of the newbies out there who just started working on their rigs, they can't get this clutch line out, and they're fighting it, they're wedging on it, they're prying it with the screwdrivers. There's a reason why you can't get it out. For the people who don't know, you remember the roll pin I knocked out earlier? This right here? That roll pin sits inside that groove right here. It sits inside there like this right here. See the thickness, how it fits? It prevents that line from would come out. If you push the clutch pedal, the hydraulic pressure that exerts would push that fitting completely out of the master cylinder. So therefore that roll pin holds it in place. So that's why at the beginning, excuse me, you got to get that roll pin out. I mean completely out. Not just part of the way, not just hanging out, get it out. Save yourself a lot of headache. So now we'll take this, feed it back through the firewall. That'll give us enough room to push our line in there and push our roll pin, line the studs up with the holes here, and bolt her up. Now once you get your roll pin started, a big pair of channel locks and squeeze that baby right in there. It works just perfectly. Now if you're careful, I should have showed you guys this. What I ended up doing is pulling this back out, laid it across the fender right here, and got the roll pin bumped in and started but don't run it too deep. If you see it inside that hole right there, you're not going to get your fitting back in, okay? You just want to get it started enough that it'll hold itself in place as you put the master cylinder back in. So you notice I ain't got it pushed all the way in, which is just fine, because it's, if you want to get nerdy about it and technical, you can squeeze it on in. But having a 1/16 of an inch hanging out, not a big deal. See, we're good. Now hook up under the dash. But here it is, I got it installed, topped off the fluids, and here's what I got. Come check this out. Check the pedal. Boom, stops dead right there. I got nothing, I mean, nothing. So, master cylinder did not fix it. Hold on just a second. So it's the next day, I come out here, I'm tinkering with it a little bit to say, hey, I need to check that fluid line coming down into the slave cylinder. I'm going to crack the bleeder screw. Am I getting fluid coming through the slave cylinder? What's clogged up? What's jammed up? Okay? Come on, going to see what we find. Under we go. So here we are. Look at that. This is the line, this is the fluid line right here coming from your master cylinder. It curves around, goes in here. Now those of you who've done a few of these internal slave cylinders, look at that. Does something not look right? Yeah, exactly. If you guessed it. If you guess this is has come undone, you are be correct. Check it out. Boop, right there. So what happens is, if you look right there at the end of it, it's got like a check valve. If this thing was to ever come unsnapped out of this slave cylinder right here, the valve closes off and does not allow fluid to come out of your line, okay? So basically what I think I might have to do is simply pull that clip right there, push that back in, snap it back in, and we should be good to go. We're about to find out. I guess when I come on here, I should have brought the tools with me, huh? Alright, let me go get my tools. Be right back. And my tools consisted of a pair of needle nose pliers and of course that rag. Why do I need the rag? Because apparently I need a rear main seal bad. Look at this, jeez. That's all coming from right beside there, so I got a rear main leaking bad. So I guess you guys know there's going to be an upcoming video, rear main. So I have that pulled out. And basically to get that snap ring out, what you're going to do is just simply grab hold of this side right here or hook it into the bottom right here and just pull it out the bottom of that fitting. Pretty easy. Take this, slide it back up inside there. I said slide it back up inside there. Come on, come on, come on. Alright peeps, I'll be right back. I need two hands to do this because it just goes up inside there. It's supposed to snap in. There we go, got it popped in. So what you gotta do is when you put it up inside there, you go slow, and as you push it, force it in, you'll feel a slight, subtle little pop. That's where those the fluid coupling inside there actually start joining together at that point. It's not gonna sink this part all the way up inside there because there's a flange right there that that key here holds onto. So it's hard to install stuff looking through a viewfinder, so I'm going to quit looking at it. Okay, pop that back in place, snap that. It's locked in place, pull on my fitting. Okay, it's not pulling out, which is a good thing. Alright now, let's see if I got clutch. Moment of truth. Do I have clutch? Oh, look at that. I've got clutch. I might have to put some more fluid in it now. So I'm going to go grab some fluid, top it off, and see what I got. So I kind of had to rig something up, but it works now. So here's what was going on. Every time I pushed the clutch, the hydraulic pressure was pushing this thing right here out, even past this thing right here, and past that clip. And so I come up here, snapped it back in and everything, grabbed the hole, kept wiggling, pulling, I pulled it out of the fitting. So therefore you shouldn't be able to do that. So those little tabs go up high right there. And this wire tie, I'll put a little wire tie at the top of it. It's not super tight, just enough to keep this thing, keep from allowing the spring clip to flex. And it works perfect. So I got all my gears back, my clutch is back, so I didn't have to spend any money. All I need was a wire tie. Imagine that. Wire tie saves the day again. Now to bleed this thing, what you got to do is get back here. You got 9/16 on the back end of the fitting. Here is your fitting here to bleed it out. 1/4 inch wrench on that. And before we do the pedal trick, let me break it loose. And before we do the pedal trick, we need to break it loose but turn it the right way. There we go. And one little word of caution, get out of the way of it because you don't want brake fluid dropping in your eyes. Push the clutch in.
Alright, follow in.
Alright, so he's got the clutch pushed in, so what you want to do, once you get the fitting broke loose, take your 1/4 inch and turn it real slow. See how it's dripping out? And what's going to happen is, as that bleeds down, his clutch pedal up there is going to have less resistance on it. Oop, no air bubble. Okay, I'm going to tighten it back up. Don't turn loose the clutch yet. So what your person up top has to do is hold the clutch in place while you tighten everything up. You don't need super tight, you just need enough to seat it. And reposition my 9/16 wrench. I done got it all jacked up. And I got brake fluid running into my armpit. That's fun. Alright, let off the clutch. Press it in again. Okay, he's holding the clutch in, so what I'm going to do at this point, pop it loose again. Adjust the 1/4 inch fitting, hold your 9/16 in place so you don't twist your line up inside the transmission. Turn it slow, don't turn it really fast or you'll blow fluid all over the back of everything. And you let it run until you see your fluid just stop right there, it's just dripping. So now I can tighten it back up. Now before we go another step, remember our reservoir that we put our fluid in is a tiny little rascal. So I'm going to check the fluid, be sure it has plenty of fluid in it before we go any further. Okay, so I had to top the fluid off a little bit because it was about halfway or so. But what you want to be careful of, you don't want to run your clutch master cylinder out of fluid. That would be a bad thing because you have to start all over again. And so, since I had this tightened up, he went ahead and turned loose the clutch because you don't want to let the clutch come back up while you have your valve open because that will introduce air back into the system. So we're going to bleed it again. He's going to press the clutch in.
Good?
Yeah, you good. And slowly turn the wrench so it bleeds out slow. And see right here at the end of my wrench, I don't know if you can see it from the camera shot because I'm not sure what the camera's seeing. It's just got to the point it's dripping. It comes out, it'll stream at first, then it just drips. Once you see this drip, snug tight it again. He lets off the clutch. And he's got the clutch backed off, and they can push it in again. And we're going to crack the bleeder screw one more time. And you do this until you see no more spitting coming out the end of this valve right here. When you see it stop doing that, you're good to go. And so, for kicks and giggles, we're going to run one more. I overfilled the master cylinder, so it should be good to go for one more. So he's going to let go of the clutch. And he's going to press it in one more time. And we'll check it, make sure if we're not spitting any bubbles, we're good. Turn it slow so you can watch it. We're not spitting bubbles. That's good. Alright, so he holds the clutch. I'm going to tighten this up. Now when you tighten up your fitting here, you don't have to get crazy tight. You feel it bottom out and you just give it a good snug. And that's all you got to do. And that's how you bleed the clutch master cylinder. And since we got fluid all over my exhaust pipe, I'm going to go ahead and wipe that off too, because that'll be stinky when it starts. And wipe that off. As you can see right here, that's how much fluid I got left after 3 bleeding sessions. Push the pedal in, he holds it, I break the bleeder screw loose, it bleeds down, he holds it, I tighten the screw up, he lets the clutch out. 3 cycles of that right there used that much fluid. You cannot do a 4th because you'll suck the fluid out of the master cylinder and you'll put air right back into it. So I recommend only doing 2, but I've done this gazillion times, so I knew I had the capability of doing 3. But if you're the newbies, 2 pedal pushes, bleeding it, top off your fluid because you don't want air inside that again. So from this point off, my clutch does all right. I'm going to say yay, we're good. But if it gives me any more issues, I have another transmission, because the whole discussion between internal external slave cylinders, obviously this Jeep has an internal slave cylinder. I have another AX15 that has the external setup. So there will be a video coming soon. Well, scratch that. I'm not going to say coming soon. It depends on how this thing right here acts. I got other projects I need to be getting on and getting done. Other projects such as change rust bucket, the front axle underneath that needs to go in this. Because if you guys watch one of my past videos, I blew the rear end up in this thing. And I had to do an emergency rear swap. This has got the Dana 35 out of rust bucket. Rust bucket has an 8.8 on the back of it right now, but because I put the axle out of rust bucket, the rear, into this one, my front rear gears don't match, so I don't have 4-wheel drive right now. I got my front drive shaft taken out, so I don't have a duh moment. Lock my transfer case in, because the front axle is a 308 gear, the rear gear is the 355. That is a bad combination for a transfer case. It was a good combination if you want to make shrapnel, but we don't want to do that. So what I need to do is get that front axle built under rust bucket and get it underneath this so I can get my 4-wheel drive back so I can go wheeling. People, I ain't been wheeling in a long time. So that is a project that's coming up really soon. Now if the clutch acts up in this thing again, is what it is, I'll be doing a full transmission swap, and which will be putting the internal slave in. Be putting the external slave cylinder transmission in. And at the point I put that transmission in, I'll show you guys the differences between the internal slave and external slave as far as the transmission is concerned. I much prefer the external slave cylinder setups, because from a maintenance standpoint, if your slave cylinder goes bad, it's an external. You got 2 bolts on the transmission. Your fluid line comes up to the master cylinder, 2 bolts there. Pull the clip, pull that baby out, put the new one in. Put 2 bolts back on top, 2 bolts back on bottom, put your clip back in, you're done. Because most of your kits for the external slave cylinders come all one kit. Master cylinder, slave cylinder, fluid line, everything comes together as all one kit. More times than not, it's already got the fluid in it and pre-bled. All you got to do is bolt it in and go. External slaves are so much easier to deal with. So eventually it will go under this. And when it does, I'll make a good detailed video showing you guys the differences in how it's installed, so all that good fun stuff. But as for right now, I got other projects I really wouldn't need to get on. So let's just hope that this fix holds together. Okay. So if everyone, if you enjoyed this video, hit me with a thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't, leave me some cool comments down below. And most of all, everyone, I really appreciate you hanging out. Peace out. Later, y'all.